Now be honest, really, be honest. Did you notice that the midfoot window's gone? Did you notice? I didn't notice that. I honestly didn't notice that the midfoot window is gone. It's an Air Max 90. Of course it has a midfoot window. Always on the lateral side, right down there. It's kind of halfway between the midfoot and the heel. There's a little window right there. It's always there, but it's gone. And I was like, oh my, where's the midfoot window? And that's like a metaphor for these sneakers. I looked at them, I got into them, I dug into them, I researched sneakers before I sit down and talk about them. And there were so many little details on these guys. They look really simple, right? They look like a very simple, basic Air Max 90. Yeah, we're celebrating 30 years of the Air Max 90. Here's an undefeated collaboration. But it's so much more complicated than that. There's so much going on in this sneaker. Yes, that midfoot window's missing, but there's a ton of other details just like that on these guys. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun bringing you today's review as we look at the upcoming release of the Nike Air Max 90 Undefeated Pacific Blue. This is the Tokyo Butter 23 Sneaker Channel, Tokyo Butter 23 Sneaker Channel days. Mainichi Absuru no de, Mainichi Mite Kudasai. And every single day from Tokyo, Japan, I bring you content about upcoming sneaker releases, sneaker news, and sneaker reviews. And today in the spotlight is an absolutely fire sneaker. In fact, when I researched this, what I wrote in my notes was, if you're gonna get just one Air Max 90 to celebrate the 30th year of the Air Max 90s, make this it. If there's just one that you're getting your hands on, I myself am not a particularly wealthy man, so the odds of me going out and buying every single 30th anniversary Air Max 90 is very small. But if I had to choose one from all the many colorways that have dropped, this would be it, because it's an absolutely cracking collaboration. It's an absolutely fire sneaker, and it's full of tiny little details that make this one of the coolest sneakers of the season. And the thing I love the most about it is that it looks just really simple from afar, but it's when you dig into it, you get to really see what's going on. Now, I did say about the 30th anniversary of the Air Max 90s, and to celebrate that, lots of things have been happening. What I was thinking was that we need to find a way to look at this undefeated and compare it to something else so that you can really see the differences and see the unique elements of that. And I thought, well, why not just use yesterday's video? Because yesterday we looked at the Nike Air Max 90 Reverse Duck Camo. So I'm going to throw up a link to that. But do remember that these links are here for the whole video. And when you click on them, it brings up a menu of all the videos. And you can watch any of those videos there. So here's that link down the Nike Air Max 90 Reverse Duck Camos from yesterday. And hopefully behind me here, you can see a picture of that. And I'll choose a picture that shows that midfoot window. And then if we flip it over and have a look at these undefeated Pacific Blues, you can see the midfoot window's gone. It's a massive detail on these sneakers. And it's just that the same as earlier in this week, I reviewed the Nike Air Max 1 London and Amsterdam pack. Down there's that if you want to go check that out, or clicking that link will open up the menu to all the other links. And they had tons of tiny little details in them about Amsterdam and about London, the London Eye, the Shard, the Amsterdam canals, the coat of arms from Amsterdam, tons of different things going on in those sneakers. And it's just like these. Those were subtle, and you had to look, you had to know where to look to know what to look for. And it's the same on these guys. They look really simple, but when you look really close, it's like, oh, you know what? That is interesting. And we'll start with that midfoot window that's gone and look at that area there, because instead of that, that has a double effect on the upper. One of those effects is the difference in the swoosh. If you look at these camos behind me here again, the duck camos, you'll see that the swoosh, because it's, how can I describe it? Like the what you would call the mudguard, perhaps, on a basketball sneaker, the lower panel of the upper. Usually the swoosh kind of blends in behind that, especially the latter half of it. It tapers off in behind the materials. But because that material isn't there, that double layer isn't there, which you usually see on Air Max 90s, that second piece of fabric, usually leather, on the lower half of the upper isn't there, then the swoosh is bigger and it travels for longer. And that's part of the midfoot window not being there as well. It's all part of the same thing. So those three things work together. The larger swoosh, the missing panel of material on the lower half of the upper, and the missing midfoot window all together create a slightly different silhouette, a slightly different lateral side to the sneaker that you would expect to see when it comes to normal Air Max 90s. And that kind of styling throughout just continues all the way through. If we go to the bottom of the lacing system, you can see that at the bottom of the lacing system, there's usually, again, a sort of elevated panel of leather where the lower eyelets are on an Air Max 90. But in the case of these guys, the blend from the lacing system into the toe box is quite uniform and quite smooth. And it really gets into, the same fabrics, and there's a really clean design that goes sleek from that lacing into the toe box. But the lacing is an important place to be because it depends. Some people, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few people out there watching this and they're like, is that really the Pacific Blues? Is that really the Undefeated collaboration? Because that doesn't look like what I've seen. Now, you might have seen two different things. And before I show you this, the note that I made in my research said, man, the wrong pair of laces can really ruin a shoe. The wrong pair of laces can really ruin a shoe. So really look at right now, hopefully behind me here you can see the full maybe lateral side or pair of these Pacific Blues with a light grey lace in them that really complements the rest of the colorway on these guys. It really does fit in beautifully with the rest of the sneaker. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip to a different website who use different pictures, and they are using a different lace in there, which I assume comes with the pack, that you get to choose whether or not you go with the grey laces or, bang, these pop-in yellow kind of Volt laces. But I think these look terrible. I think they look really bad. It's a totally different sneaker. I'm much more about toned down, subtle sneakers, so that kind of like bang in your face style isn't my kind of thing. And these yellow laces on here, if you compare them back to what I prefer, this is a much better look for the sneaker. So if I hadn't looked in different places to find out different versions of the shoe and see the different kind of ways that websites and media and social media and stuff like that were looking at them, I wouldn't have realized that I would have just stuck with those yellow ones and been like, ew. But then the grey lacing on these guys, much nicer looking sneaker, really fits the rest of the shoe very well. But staying up there on that lacing system, translucence is a major feature on the design of these guys. And because I'm going to travel away from the lacing system with this translucent motif, let's just stay and look at the tongues before we go, because it's one of my favorite features of an Undefeated collaboration with the Nike Air Max 90 line, is where you get that kind of 5, what are they called now? Tally marks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tally marks on the tongue there. And they've got that there, that branding up there on the tongue. I think it's really cool. I love it when they do that. And it was one of my favorite features of a previous set of Undefeated collaborations that came out with the Air Max 90 brands, that they did that on the heel. But we'll get to that in a minute, because I want to look at this translucent motif because it's on the lace, the eyelets on the lacing system, that they've got those two panels, which are usually a very kind of solid, ridged plastic or rubber on there. But in the case of these guys, it's a much thinner and it's got a semi-translucent element to it, which is also reflected if we go and have a look at the outsole down. You can see the outsole behind me here now. It's got that really clean, almost icy blue translucence to it. And then we go to the back of the sneaker. But before we go to the back of this sneaker, let's go to the back of the previous Undefeated. One of my favorite branding features of all time, that tally mark branding on the back of the previous Undefeated collaboration. And I was expecting to see that on these, and at first glance I was disappointed to see they're not there. But there were two things that I do like about this, the heel section of these Pacific Blues. One is that translucent motif that we saw continued from the lacing to the outsole and now onto the heel section, but then also that translucent effect is put to good use because you can look through it and see underneath the Undefeated branding in that bright yellow that would match the other laces, which I don't recommend you use. And that's cool. It's cool that it's translucent. It's cool that they've kind of jazzed up the design a little bit on the heel branding, and it's cool that it looks through to a larger piece of Undefeated branding underneath. So I'm very much a yes on that particular element of these sneakers. And then the last thing to look at is to go into the midfoot to the midsole and look at what's going on in there, because in the midsole you've got this speckled effect, which adds another element to this sneaker and another level of design. And like I said at the start, at first glance, these guys are very, very simple, but when you dig into them, there's an awful lot going on in there. And there's a couple of things that I haven't touched on and I don't really have time to touch on. One is the 3M branding in there as well. So when you flip the switch and go dark, there's 3M points on here. And also apparently, and I haven't been able to see this, but apparently behind the tongue there's a swoosh tucked in behind there as well. So an awful lot of really cool detailing on these sneakers. Really, really smart in the intelligent sense, but smart in the clean sense. Really, really smart colorway, really, really smart collaboration between Undefeated and the Nike Air Max line. So it's a very big yes for me. And like I said, if you want to grab just one pair of Air Max 90s to celebrate the 30th year, this is my recommendation for you, because I think these are really cool. They're simple, they're interesting, they're a collaboration, they're unique, they represent what you'd want for a 30th year celebratory shoe, not just a standard colorway, but a bit of character and a bit of extra oomph on it. So that's my look at these guys, these Pacific Blues. I have seen them also called Ocean Blues, but I'm going to go with the Pacific Blue name and moniker for these guys. But I will also, speaking of the Pacific, hey, here's a segue. Japan is on the Pacific, as is America. And speaking of Japan, we've been going live every morning. Here's a playlist of those lives, dying to talk about the coronavirus and what it's like to live in Japan with these coronavirus situations and restrictions going on. As in the rest of the world, many people compromised by this situation. But I don't want to bring that into these videos about the sneakers. But I do, want to let you know that if that's what you're interested in, I go live every morning, and there's some videos to hear about real life in Japan during this time. But also, when I finish these videos, I always finish up by talking about the rarest sneakers in the world from Shoe Butter. He brings us the rarest sneakers in hand every single week, so we appreciate that. And because I put them together in a playlist, you get to check them out and see samples and prototypes and player exclusives and one-of-ones and some of the rarest sneakers in the world. So I'll put up that list here, but clicking on that list will, that link will bring down a menu of all the other links, and you can choose which of my videos to go to next. So ding, there's that playlist. But for now, all that's left for me to do is to sign off and thank you guys for checking out my content. But because I do this every single day, that means that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.